On 21st September, Ghana and the entire continent of Africa will observe and celebrate the life and legacy of the African of the 20th century, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. In a revolutionary manner, the first president of the Republic of Ghana led the country to independence and called for the independence of other African countries, industrialized and set the nation on a road to match with the then powers of the world. Unfortunately for the country and Africa, Sajifo did not live long to realize his ambition. And today we want to interrogate the legacy as we wait for Sunday to do the proper celebration. We'll interrogate the legacy of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. We'll start off the conversation with Kwame Janto. Kwame Janto is joining me over the telephone. Kwame, many thanks for your time here.
Good morning and good morning to Daniel.
Kwame, how are you looking forward to the day?
I'm looking forward to the day with a bit of sadness. And why do I say it's because Ghana and Africa as a whole haven't been able to achieve the vision of it. And the sad thing is that we have the template to tweak it to today, Africa and Ghana, and we are not doing it. And so all the things that he brought for Ghanaians, for Africans, everything at the present moment cannot be found anywhere. And the little he's left, we haven't been able to maintain it. So it's a bit of a sad day for me.
Well, why do you say Africa has not been able to live up to it as far as Nkrumah's ideals is concerned?
Selflessness. That's the key. Selflessness. The greed in Africa is just too much. And look, I tell you, he wrote nearly 19 books within his duration as Prime Minister and President of Ghana. How many of us have read those books? And you look at things like the EPA we've gone to sign, and when you read his book, Africa Must Unite, and he's saying exactly what we've done. We've gone the...
Hello, Kwame, are you there? Hello, Kwame. I think the line dropped there on Kwame, and would re-establish contact with Kwame, who's making a very interesting point this morning. Would interrogate the legacy better. Kwame has just told us that Africa has not lived up to it after the death of Kwame Nkrumah because we lack selflessness as a people right now. We want to get into that. So we are not adhering to those ideals, and yet posthumously, year after year, we award Dr. Kwame Nkrumah for his selfless contribution to Ghana, to the continent. How do we reconcile the two? Hopefully when I'm joined over the telephone by Kwame again, we would talk about that. Not only would we talk to Kwame, we're looking forward to speak to one of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's children, Samia Nkrumah, who is now chair for the Convention People's Party. When we speak to Samia, we want to find out. So all these parties going about and speaking about being Nkrumah's parties, what have they offered already? How have they failed us? What can they do in the future to make things better? But Kwame is back over the telephone. Kwame, I'm sorry about that, but you were making a point about how we have lost selflessness as a country, as a continent.
Yes, we've lost selflessness, and we've replaced it with greed. It is a shame. Look, as I was saying to you, Nkrumah didn't envisage Akosombo mode to go more than a certain duration of time. So what did he do? He put in measures. He brought an atomic reactor. He was going to start the Bui Dam in 1964, 65. What happened? Come 66, there was a coup. It's taken how many years for us to do Bui Dam? And now, even though we've done Bui Dam, it is a peaking dam. It can't really give us what we're looking for. Look at the number of industries he put up to create employment for our people. And I'll give you an example. We had 18 miles of rubber plantation, 18 miles. What did we do? We sold it to Firestone. In that 18 miles, we were manufacturing our own tires. What are we doing now? We're importing second-hand tires into this country. Look at our housing system. Our people are living in shacks. And the number of houses in Nkrumah build for the people. Look at Tema. He created Tema. The only head of state who has been able to do anything close to him is the champion where housing is concerned. He builds Nkrumah. Where are we today? Look at our education system. In my day, I took my A-levels to London and went to university. Can our children do that today? So you look at the whole gamut of things that he set up. We've broken it gradually. A whole motorway. Look at how long that motorway has lasted. And the motorway was built before the M25 in the UK. And look at it today.
In order for us to deal with the problem we have now, the fact that we have lost selflessness, we need to find out what the problem is, how we got to that point in the first place. Do you have an idea at which point at all the African lost that value?
We lost the value in 1966. That is when we lost the value. That's when we lost the value. Because even if we overthrew Nkrumah and we kept his vision alive, Ghana would be somewhere today. My dear, let me tell you something. Korea came, they took what we had. Singapore came, they took what we had. China came, they took what we had. Malaysia came, they took what we had. Where are those countries today? Korea is manufacturing cars and importing to us here. We have a smelter. We have an aluminium smelter. Where is that smelter today? We have bauxite today in the north. What is happening? The Chinese are cutting it out and spoiling our roads. Wouldn't it have been better if we said, if you want our bauxite, set up a factory here for us to at least process here? Look at the number of factories we would have been able to set up. I'll give you another typical example. What is Ghana known for? Cocoa. What did Nkrumah do? He grew jute. What did the jute do? He manufactured jute sacks. Where is that factory today? And now we are spending millions buying sacks from Bangladesh. What is wrong with us?
So for our people that could not sustain the ideal of Asajafo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and yet year after year we celebrate him. Posthumously, we have awarded him in different circles of the continent. What does it say of us?
That is what I don't understand. I don't understand it because, you see, Nkrumah did everything by planning. He had a 5-year, he had a 7-year, he had a 10-year national development plan. So he did everything by plan. He was able to target our revenues from our resources to specific projects. And that is how Akosombo Dam came out. That's all the things that he did came out. Do we have a national development plan today? Because, you see, it serves politicians well to decide by discretion. So we need X. There's money there. So let's decide and let's put money in there without planning. And without planning, how do you target your revenue? I kept saying from the word go that this new resource we have in oil, do not let us put the revenue in the consolidated fund. Why? Because the consolidated fund is leaking. How can you put the word of money, you know, the speed at which oil money comes in, that's it, and you put it in a consolidated fund that is leaking, put it in a separate fund. You even just forget about that and put it in there. And then tighten those loopholes where you get your traditional revenue from. Tighten them. No. We put a consolidated fund. Within 3 years, we've made $2 billion of oil money. Can we account for it? So you sit back and you ask yourself, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Everybody seems to be interested in their own surroundings.
With that background, should we even celebrate Dr. Kwame Nkrumah?
We need to celebrate him to remember, remind us that we can do it. We need to celebrate him to remind us that we can do it. And one day, there would be a president who would come and say, I do not care if I don't win the next election. It doesn't bother me. I'm doing the right thing. And you see, the thing is that one head of state or one party or one president cannot do it all. But start, and let it continue. That's why I'm saying, where a national development plan is concerned, it is not a political party that has to put that in force. All stakeholders need to sit around the table and say, this is where we want this country to go to. And that national development plan, we should Educate everybody to the class 1 child so that they understand it. So that when government is spending, they don't let that money go,
Kwame,
and it can be accounted for.
Kwame, we'll leave it here for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you
We
very
look
much.
forward to that day where we have such a precedent. Kwame Jantua is legal practitioner. He's also an Nkrumah. But we'll stay on this conversation a bit longer. Joining me now over the telephone again is Kofi Hinako, his local organizing committee for the 8th Pan-African. He's a member of the local organizing committee for the 8th Pan-African Congress. Kofi, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
How are you looking forward to September 21?
September 21 is a very important day because looking at a man from the outpost in Nkrumah, somewhere in the backwoods of Western region, born in 1909, going through the mill under the colonial rule, the school, from a poor family, and having come onto the world stage to take on the mighty British Empire, then rule the waves and gain independence and act as a beacon for national liberation in Africa, in the Pan-African world, then we have to look forward to celebrating the 21st of September for his achievements, both personally, for his nation, for his people, and for his race.
But you see, when you look back, or when you look at now and how things have evolved since the death of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, then you want to ask the question, was all of his struggles worth it?
Indeed, it's worth it. If we praise Kofi Annan for having been General Secretary General of the United Nations, or for the achievement of Africans, Ghanaians, in all fields of endeavor, and then go back and see, before 1957, how many of our people, people with all those resources, were anywhere, then it's worth it. Then it has been worth it.
Kofi, I'm going to have you host the line. Samia Nkrumah has joined our conversation. Samia Nkrumah is daughter of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. She's also chairperson for the Convention People's Party. Samia, I'm totally grateful you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you looking forward to the day?
Hey, with great energy and enthusiasm. You know, as always, we have dedicated our lives to reviving the development policy guidelines that Kwame Nkrumah, or Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah, initiated and started. And we are not looking back with nostalgia, but rather what we are saying is that Kwame Nkrumah is the future for Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah's ideas, his way of doing things, the policies he started are the future for Ghana's development and are the only way out of this economic chaos we find ourselves in.
I see. Let's see how you would assess the modern day Ghana.
Yeah, total economic chaos, of course. And that began decades ago. You know, had we pursued the 7-year development plan, we would have been manufacturing everything, almost everything we consume. We would have been producing everything we need. We would not have had to rely on imports, on importing almost every single thing, including, as we like to say, matchsticks, something that easily could be done, given that Ghana is one of the greatest producers of timber. So we lost our way. We are in the wilderness, but it's never too late.
Which is very much in contrast with what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah believed in. I know the year after year you receive awards on behalf of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. In fact, you got one in Nairobi this year as we approach the September 21 celebration. When you receive those awards, how do you feel? Because the continent is swayed from those ideals Dr. Kwame Nkrumah held highly.
Yes, indeed. He's held highly outside Ghana also, and not only here. I mean, he was voted the African of the Millennium at the turn of the century by a BBC survey, surpassing living legends at the time, like the great Nelson Mandela. So he must have been doing something right. But we don't need to look far, because there's physical evidence of what he tried to do right here, back at home. You know, evidence of the modernization and industrialization drive that began decades ago, you see. But what we must focus on now is the future, is how can we revive those very plans, those very policies that we started doing, because nothing else has worked for Ghana. So we must, as the younger generation, you know, this generation and the one following it, we must get our act together. Kwame Nkrumah,
do you think
he documented everything, so we have the blueprint. Why are we hesitating? You think, what is stopping us? What really is stopping us from revisiting and adapting, of course, to changing circumstances, what Kwame Nkrumah started? Ask yourself, what exactly is stopping us?
How do you think your father, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, would feel about all the posthumous awards he's received and the growth of the continent, the fact that this continent perhaps learnt very little from his works?
I think he will be praying and urging the younger generation to do something. You know, I think we are, yes, the awards and recognition is good, but it's only good as long as we do something practical with it. We gained independence. The architects of independence, of African freedom, fought on our behalf so that we can improve the living conditions of our people, so that we can begin to control our resources, our economy, in the interest of our people. If you just imagine that Ghana, if we had followed the 7-year development plan, we would have had about at least four factories, producing sugar, which would have been sufficient to eliminate sugar from the list of our imports. This is just a very small example, because if you look today at how much sugar we are importing, but the plans were laid out for us to produce sugar and become independent of importing this item that we, consume in great quantities. If you just imagine how far ahead we were back then, you see that our gold and foreign exchange assets were under state financial control. So what's going on? What's happening?
Sammy, I'm going to have you host the line just for a bit. Kofi Hinaku, we started the conversation just before you joined. Kofi Hinaku is member of the local organizing committee for the 8th Pan-African Congress. Kofi, I'm totally grateful for your patience here.
Yeah.
Kofi, Pan-Africanism was one of those causes Dr. Kwame Nkrumah pursued for as long as he could. What would be an assessment of the journey so far, post Kwame Nkrumah?
Well, post Kwame Nkrumah, the journey so far has not been smooth. Mind you, the Manchester Conference of 1945, that's the 5th Pan-African Congress, charted the national liberation movement strategy for liberating Africa. And by 1960, more than half of the countries in Africa had become independent. After that, the next battle was for economic independence. And Kwame Nkrumah told us, or tried to promote confidence by us in ourselves. It is that lack of confidence in ourselves which led post-1966 to re-abandoning the strategy for economic transformation of our continent. Now, what we need to do is to ensure that there's intra-African trade and inter-African trade, among not only within Africa, but amongst the black world. Why do we talk about Pan-Africanism? Because we have a shared experience of colonialism, a shared experience of slavery, a shared experience of exploitation, a shared experience of losing our resources. That is what makes the African in us come to the fore, and that's the basis for Pan-Africanism. So what we need to do is to trade. Now there's a blockade, albeit unofficial, against the Ebola-threatened country. They were trading, the people. Forget about the officials. They were trading in bushmeat, they were trading with foodstuffs and everything. Now all the borders are being closed. So there's a colossal loss as far as the economic impact is concerned.
But you see, when you look forward to the future, a future of a younger generation, perhaps younger than I am, you see a future where perhaps Dr. Kwame Nkrumah only exists as the first president of Ghana, and beyond that, nobody knows anything about Kwame Nkrumah. Nobody knows the ideals of Kwame Nkrumah. How do we achieve a one Africa with that?
Well, the problem does not revolve around the personality only of Kwame Nkrumah. Was poverty existing during Kwame Nkrumah's time? Were diseases like yours, elephantiasis existing? Was underdevelopment existing? Was high cost of living existing before Kwame Nkrumah? Do they exist now? What were the strategies Kwame Nkrumah used to try to solve them? Those strategies do not belong specifically to Kwame Nkrumah. There are age-old strategies which are used to solve our problems. And Kwame Nkrumah did use them with success. Kwame Nkrumah waking people up, people of his generation up to the fact that they could do it for themselves. And it is that which inspires future generations, including the youth, to also be able to do it for themselves. It is that can-do spirit that it is not only the Europeans who can do it. They've done it for their continent. Can we do it? Have we done it before? And that's where Kwame Nkrumah comes to the fore as the inspirer.
And so you agree that indeed, when it comes to Pan-Africanism, he's the pivot.
It is more than the pivot.
Absolutely. And so if the younger ones do not know about this man and what he stood for, I'm not sure how we intend to achieve that.
If like Samia said, a survey by BBC, a media outlet for the West, is able to get people to say that Kwame Nkrumah was the leading light of the man of the millennium or something of that sort, then you must understand that people do know him because people see what he did for Ghana and for Africa and Pan-Africanism, and people know or identify with his thoughts.
Kofi,
which is very important. Yeah.
Kofi, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Samia, you've been listening to the conversation between myself and Kofi. I just let you react.
I'm doing an interview. Sorry, I'm with you. Yes.
Right. So I was saying that you were listening to the conversation between myself and Kofi and our bid to have a one Africa and how we can achieve that if the younger people do not know Dr. Kwame Nkrumah beyond he being the first Ghanaian president. What would be your comment on that briefly, just before we get into other aspects of this?
Okay. No, indeed. Kwame Nkrumah was one of the main architects of African unity on African soil. And like the speaker said earlier, this was instrumental in Africa becoming free, other countries gaining independence, that is. But you see, there is a disconnect between, in our mind, between what Kwame Nkrumah stood for and how that can help us now to solve our problems. You see, those of us who are standing and shouting and saying, let us change our policies, let us emulate Kwame Nkrumah, we are saying that let us connect our decision-making to Nkrumah's way of thinking. You see, but we can't keep on talking about how great Kwame Nkrumah was without linking it to solving our problems today. If Kwame Nkrumah, as we are saying, was ahead of his time, then this time is now. So let us make that link. What I want our young people to do is to make that link. Work with organizations that are helping revive in our minds Nkrumah's ideas, because that's the only way we can liberate our economies from dependency. There is a link between what Kwame Nkrumah started and the fact that we abandoned his principles and the chaos we are in today. There's a very strong link. So if we are looking at our history, we are analyzing our economic history, we are doing so to see how we can get help from that great African leader to chart or forge, rather, the way forward for us today. Let us not talk about Kwame Nkrumah with nostalgia. No, no, no. That was not the objective of the African freedom or African liberation flame he lit. It is right here with us today.
And that is why
what he called for.
Absolutely, and that is why you got worried when a lot of people say all sorts of things and still represent themselves as Nkrumahs or an Nkrumahs party.
Indeed. Indeed. It is very worrying. Kwame Nkrumah is not a brand name. This political thought must be practiced, and now. So young people must acquire that knowledge and understanding and have the courage to vote for decision makers who are going to implement Kwame Nkrumah's way of doing things. You see, we must transcend that misconception. You see, you cannot be an Nkrumahist and rush to the IMF for a bailout that will impoverish our people. You cannot be an Nkrumahist if you are going into an agreement that will open up your markets to cheap foreign goods and will kill your industrial program or your manufacturing productivity. You cannot be an Nkrumahist if you are going to sign bills that will allow big transnational corporations to own and come and sell their seeds in your country and impoverish your farmers. So let us be alert to what is not Nkrumah's way of doing things today. Let us make it relevant to the policies we are going about, we are choosing, because it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous to talk about Kwame Nkrumah and do the opposite of what he was doing.
So with that as the premise, would you say that the true Nkrumahs, whether political party or individual, have failed us as a Ghanaian people? Because then we don't know where you are. We don't see you in the political space.
Sorry, my dear, sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm just saying that with that as a premise, the fact that everybody seems to be going about speaking, saying I'm an Nkrumahs or my party is an Nkrumahs party, then the true Nkrumahs party hasn't worked well, has it? Because then we haven't seen you where you should be.
No, it hasn't worked well because of the misconceptions and the bad propaganda. But we are here. You see, you have not tried it to make that judgment. You have not tried it. We have not. Nkrumahs haven't been in power for decades. On the contrary, there are all these conspiracies and machinations to make sure Nkrumahs are removed from decision making. So the people of Ghana have not tried it. There are brilliant people in Ghana, and there are many Nkrumahs who are willing to devote their lives to changing the structure of this economy. We know how to do it. We haven't tried. Ghana has not tried an Nkrumah's government. And that since the overthrow, with the exception of the Liman government for just 2 years. But we have not really made that choice.
So what would it take?
That is the leap we have to do. That is the leap we have to do in 2016. 2016 will be 50 years after the overthrow of the Nkrumah government. I would say the only government that delivered to the nation. So let us put our heads together. Let us examine what we are doing. People have the power to do anything. And we've had the power to gain political independence. Now we have the power to gain economic independence, but only if we make the right decisions. Genuine Nkrumahs are here. They are around. Many of them some are civil servants, some are academics, some are businessmen and women. They are all over the place. Let us give people who can change the course of this country. Let us give them a chance. But we can only do that if we try and understand what Kwame Nkrumah tried to do.
I see. In understanding, what would be the role of the so-called Nkrumahist parties?
Their role is to be in government, to make decisions on behalf of the people of Ghana.
We need to understand so we can vote you into office. But if we do not understand, how do we do that? So how do we get the understanding bit?
Listen harder to us. We are talking. We are sending out our message. We are talking. You see, listen harder to us. When we say, be careful of the IMF conditionalities, and we say why, listen to us. When we say no GMOs, Ghana does not need genetically modified food.
Maybe your party, for instance, has not got the numbers. Perhaps that's why the message is not loud enough. Would unity of all the true Nkrumahist parties bring that?
No, the Nkrumahs will unite. But as we improve our internal organization, it is inevitable that we will unite. But what matters is the message. Let us listen attentively to the message. Politics has become very monetized, of course, so people's judgment sometimes is clouded. But I think after 20 years of multi-party democracy, after 20 years of people voting every year and their lives not improving, I think we are all beginning to question this. Do we need an alternative political force to guide us? Yes, I would say yes. Many of us are thinking this way. Maybe we don't yet rather have the courage to change our vote. But it's inevitable because things are getting more difficult. The trust in decision makers is becoming less and less, weaker and weaker. And it is our responsibility, all of us collectively, to change that. So we are talking to Nkrumahs, but we are talking to also people from other sympathizers and supporters of other political parties. Ghana needs you.
Absolutely.
To make the right decision.
Absolutely. Samia, many thanks for your time. Pleasure. Absolute pleasure talking to you.
And join us at the mausoleum on the 22nd, Monday the 22nd, from 2 p.m. We are going to celebrate Kwame Nkrumah and launch our electronic database. And join us. Whoever's interested in Ghana with an Nkrumah's future, please come and listen, join us and register.
Absolutely. We'll do what we can to be there. Thank you very much, Samia. Samia Nkrumah is daughter of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. She's also chairperson for the Convention People's Party. Let's get into some of the messages you have been sending us. And Taurus Kweku Dako Chiun King says, it's so true that you cannot be an Nkrumah and go to the IMF for bailouts, as according to Samia Nkrumah. And it's also true that there are conspiracies to remove the real Nkrumahs from Ghana's political parties, again, according to Samia Nkrumah. And, well, Terrence Kweku Dako agrees with Samia Nkrumah. But let's get into some other messages about whether or not Africa has lived to the expectations of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Well, I will do that when we return from the break. Don't go away.